Peace, shalom, shalom, assalamu alaikum, hotep, namaste, jambo, ashe, all the greetings of love and light to the darkest mind of the light. Thank you for joining me on my channel. I'm Napashada. And yes, this is late, but this is the best time for me to do what I'm about to do. So, the title says After Hours Lesson. I mean, it's just me sharing some information on entropy, time, and consciousness all in one. And of course, I'm going to incorporate information on what we know as God and what we've seen in spiritual writings. So without further ado, let me just go to, I have these PowerPoints. I've done this presentation before. I might go to grab the presentation that I did on the Killer Priest Podcraft, I did this topic and I did this presentation, but I'm going to do it a little differently, of course, because I'm here live. But like I said, I might grab some of that information. But let me go to my PowerPoint now and let's talk about entropy. All right. So let me share. Some of you may have seen my previous presentation on entropy. If not, no worries. I'm doing it now. Okay, so I think it's this one. Excuse me. Oh, yes, it is late. Let me see. I think it's this one. Yes, so entropy. What is entropy? Make sure no shit is showing it. These weirdos. Okay, what is entropy? Well, the slide says in the beginning, I put in the beginning there was low entropy. Entropy is the measurement of disorder and the direct measure of each energy configuration's probability. What does that mean? So let me see if I can get, if I even have the definition. I don't know if I have the definition of entropy in here. Oh, well, okay, here it is. Entropy is second law of thermodynamics says that entropy always increases. Let me grab the definition. I guess I just assumed, what did I put? Did I put anything? I have a couple of these. Oh, jeez. Hold on, please. So anyway, sorry about that. Damn. Oh God. Let me see. Let me stop sharing this one. I gotta find out which PowerPoint it is. This is the one God is light. And this one is, you know what's weird? When I'm not doing anything, nobody wants to do anything. Let me start from the beginning. Many spiritual schools of thought describe the beginning similarly to the second law of thermodynamics. What schools of thought? That shouldn't even be at the first, but I'm going to go into it. The Kabbalah, right, with the Tzimtzum, Kemet, Heliopolis story of creation of Ra, the Greek mythos of chaos, Gaia, Eros, and the Mesopotamian story of the destruction of Tiamat. All right, so what is entropy? Well, just for everybody, I'm just going to grab it here. And then we'll go more in depth. I'm surprised I didn't just give the basic definition of it. Okay, entropy is a scientific concept that is most commonly associated with a state of disorder, yes, randomness, or uncertainty. The term and the concept are used in diverse fields, from classical thermodynamics, where it was first recognized, to the microscopic description of nature in statistical physics. Entropy is entropy's preferred way of rendering all produced machinery. Okay, blah, I'm not doing that. So, enough of that. So, it's basically, like I said, the state of disorder. All right. So, let me get back to my PowerPoint. Basically, the second law of thermodynamics says you can never undo entropy increases. Get it? So the state of disorder never will decrease. You don't want to get that misunderstood with energy, even though it is part of the laws of thermodynamics. It can get kind of tricky when you start talking about energy decreasing and how it affects entropy. Entropy always goes forward, or I should say, always increases. It always goes, it never goes back. All right. For instance, the entropy of knocking a teacup off the table that's glass. talking about the laws of thermodynamics, and we're talking about basic physics too when I talk to you about this. So we're not yet getting into, the philosophical and the metaphysical, or the metaphysical and the physics. Both are the same. We're not in the philosophical yet. We're just talking about basic laws of thermodynamics and basic physics. If you knock the cup off the table, the entropy is the cup breaking on the floor. You cannot reverse that and say, come back onto the table. That's a basic way of really describing it, right? So let me get to my PowerPoint. I need my crutch. All right, so here it is. Present, share screen, boom. And I'm not make this too long because suddenly everybody wants to be talking to me and call me, which I love that, but let me do my thing right now. Okay? Let me do my thing. Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, entropy. In the beginning, there was low entropy. See, by the way, there's high entropy and low entropy. In the beginning, there was low entropy because there's always a starting point. From what we know, right? There's always a starting point. Entropy is the measurement of disorder, like how much disorder and randomness, and the direct measure of each energy configuration's probability. Entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, says that entropy always increases. Entropy equals energy. Entropy is when energy is concentrated, right? It's low entropy. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh, God. So listen to me. Low entropy is when energy is concentrated. Now, I'm going to use another example, but I don't want you to completely confuse this with entropy. Well, how do I say it? Let me just throw it out here and then I'll just explain it. That's how my brain works. So a state of matter, right? A state of matter. You've got molecules everywhere. Just they're everywhere in the container. That is high entropy. It just so happened. Now, remember, we're talking about thermodynamics, right? So I'm talking about the laws of, I'm talking about chemistry. We're going to talk about the laws of thermodynamics, but we're also going to ease our way into philosophical discussion. And we're going to talk about physics, right? We're going to be talking about basic chemistry and the laws of thermodynamics. All of this goes together. Then we're going to ease our way into philosophical speaking. Repeat that, right? So you have matter, a state of matter, right? Let's say it's gaseous. Gaseous matter. We've got the molecules all over the place. They're everywhere. Now, that's high entropy, right? High entropy equals when energy, and I'm speaking and the molecules, because matter is actually essentially energy. I know, see, it's getting crazy. But just for basics, the molecules are everywhere. That's high entropy. Low entropy is when the energy, these molecules, that's the material, matter is energy. So they're concentrated, right? It just so happens, it's not really coincidental, but I'm just throwing it out. It just so happens that state of matter would either be liquid or solid. The energy is more concentrated. You're going to say, but Nepal, you said that it can't be reversed. You can actually reverse a solid to a gas in a lot of cases. You can reverse a solid to a liquid. So no, we don't want to misunderstand. We don't misunderstand that the actual matter isn't what I'm discussing, not the actual physical matter. We're talking about the state of the matter and how, going back to this part, how the measurement of the disorder and yes, and the energy configurations probability. I know that's a whole mess, but don't worry, I'm gonna clean it up. You think it's a chaos, but it's not. So basically, when we have microstates, I'm throwing something in here. In entropy, you have something what we call states, and microstates are whatever is going on within the entropy. The molecules are microstates, for instance. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So in entropy, you have microstates. Let me go to the next slide. Chaos, aka disorder, was in the beginning. Okay, that's philosophical. We're gonna move on for that for a minute. Moving on from this, because we're gonna get the basics of entropy down before we start talking about the Bible, and I'm gonna tie it all together really quickly. You keep going. Entropy. Keep on repeating that in this PowerPoint because it's important. It is the second law of thermodynamics. Entropy and the second law of thermodynamics says that it will always increase. It will never decrease. Total disorder of an isolated system such as the universe can only increase in disorder, or it can remain constant. It can never decrease. Entropy, again, repeating it again, the measurement of disorder and the direct measure of each energy configuration's probability. It can only increase or remain constant. It can never what? Can never decrease, right? So let's see here. What do I got? Entropy can be defined and described through the amount of randomness and the disorder present in a closed system. Let me say that again. Entropy can be defined and described through the amount of randomness and disorder present in a closed system. I was typing this. Okay, I think, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So a microstate within the system, I'm sorry, y'all. Microstates within the system increase when there is more chaos / randomness / disorder. Let me say that again. Microstates within a system increase when there is more chaos, randomness, disorder. So what do microstates do? They increase when there is more chaos, randomness, and disorder. Okay. The more microstates in the system, the more entropy there is. Get it? Because why? Because don't forget that entropy is the measurement of disorder, and it is the direct measure of each energy's configuration, each energy configuration's probability. It can only increase or remain constant. Entropy can be defined and described through the amount of randomness and disorder present in a closed system. Microstates within the system increase when there is more chaos, randomness, and disorder or / disorder. So a microstate is like remember I talked about the molecules? It doesn't have to necessarily be molecules. Whatever is in the system that is present in that closed system. Okay, you could have puzzle pieces and you throw them on an area on the throw rug on the floor. The throw rug, the throw rug is the closed system. The puzzle pieces are the microstates. Okay, right? The more chaos, randomness, and disorder that there is will increase, it will equal higher entropy. What do you mean, Napa? Okay, well, you throw the puzzle pieces down there. Hey, well, how about this? You throw the puzzle already done. It's already put together, right? You throw it on the throw rug on the floor. because there's a high concentration, the puzzle pieces are all together, that's low entropy. Say it again, please, Nepal. I will. Because the puzzle pieces are all close together, they're in, get it, I'm doing air quotes, order, right? There's more order. That's lower entropy. If you break those pieces apart and spread them all over the throw rug, now that's high entropy. Why? Because there's more disorder. So entropy can be defined and described through the amount of randomness and disorder present in a closed system. Oh, that was a good, hey, I'm glad I did that. That was a good little analogy, great little example. Okay, so get it? So microstates are the pieces of the puzzle. Microstates within the system increase when there is more chaos, randomness, and disorder. You say, wait a minute, how can that be? There's just a limited amount of puzzle pieces. Well, let's say there's not a limited amount. You get what I'm saying? Let's say that the more they're spread out increases the amount of, well, because it does. Let's say, in fact, let's say each puzzle piece are like living beings, right? That I'm supposed to put in order. Okay. So microstates within the system, remember, it's a state. So it's a state of something. It's a smaller state within the actual closed system. It's a microstate. The closed system essentially is a macro state, right? Oh, I don't want to confuse people, but all right. So microstates within the system increase when there is more chaos. So yeah, you can look at it like that. Like when the puzzles are like, well, I got it. Perfect example. So remember the puzzle pieces? Let's say that they become like, you know how you're playing checkers and you say, crown me on a checkerboard, you know, the little pieces when you're the checkers. So let's say the more you spread out the puzzle pieces, they're like increasing in power, or they're more valuable. Okay, got it? So the microstates within the system increase when there is more chaos, randomness, and disorder. I'm not saying they actually, power has nothing to do with it. I threw that in there. Okay, but you give and say they increase. So the more there's chaos, the microstates increase in the as far as the, and that means that there's more entropy. When the microstates increase due to the increased chaos and disorder, that equals high entropy. When the microstates are more concentrated, that equals lower entropy. The more microstates in the system, the more entropy. All right, I think I got that. I haven't looked in the chat. But okay, let's keep moving on. Okay, I forgot that I put this in here. What is a microstate? A microstate is a unique state which can exist within a system. The more microstates, the higher the entropy. Vice versa, right? So high entropy, you can understand that there is more disorder. And if there's more disorder, you know that the microstates are there's more microstates. Get it? Okay. So the higher the entropy, the more the microstates. The less the microstates, the lower the entropy. It's really fun once you know, it's not really that hard. Each life in this existence, in this lifetime, in this world is a microstate. Yeah, that's right. Get it? So I threw that little metaphysical part in there. Okay. So change in entropy. We were just discussing change. That's actually just, you know, the symbols for change in entropy, the symbolism for change in entropy. So when you see that, that means change in entropy. We're talking about, again, remember how much disorder we're measuring, the disorder, and it only increases when we're talking about entropy. Order increases. Disorder doesn't undo and decrease, or it remains constant. Remember that, okay? So what about the change in entropy? Well, we already discussed a little bit of it. We said, you know, I talked about, you know, how the puzzle pieces. We talked about concentrated and then spread out in a closed system. The two important factors affecting entropy, changes in entropy. There are two important factors that affect entropy. Number one, the number of particles within the system. Now we're talking more specific and it's clearer. The number of particles is one factor that affects entropy. Remember, entropy is the measure of disorder or randomness within a closed system. So what's going to affect that? What's going to affect how we determine the measure of disorder in a closed system? Well, number one, what's the number of particles, right? We're going to start looking at microstates, right? So the number of particles within the system is one important factor affecting entropy. And what's another important factor? The phase changes of those particles within the system. Oh, okay. I kind of talked about that before. Now this is getting more into chemistry. So it takes us down a little bit, as in a sense, to more uniform, more focused on, we're talking about chemistry when we talk about the states of matter. So it says the phase changes of particles within the system, right? I talked a little bit about that, but I don't want to get too confusing. I'm going to stay off that and I might come back. But those are two important factors. Phase changes. It's not always solid, gas, and liquid as far as matter goes. Again, I'm talking about chemistry, and this is important. And it's 101, it's just basic information on just when you embark on the learning part, like, okay, what is this? What do you mean by entropy? However, there's a lot more to it. But we're talking about thermodynamics and we're talking about energy, matter, get it? So it all goes back and ties together. So the two important factors affecting entropy are one, the number of particles within the system, and then two, phase changes of the particles within the system, a closed system. You have to remember this. I'm going to keep reminding you that this, in the second law of thermodynamics, entropy always increases. Low entropy equals energy being concentrated. Remember we talked about that with the puzzle pieces being concentrated. That's low entropy, right? High entropy is when energy is spread out. Talked about that. When the pieces are spread all over the place, it's high entropy because it's more disorder, right? Right. All right. So chaos, aka disorder, was in the beginning. I'm throwing in some metaphysical, but it works. It's aligning with science. It's aligning with the Big Bang Theory. It's aligning with a lot, right? So the arrangement of energy. All right. We're going to talk about the arrangement of energy. Let's go back to those two important factors affecting entropy, the number of particles within the system, and the phase changes of the particles within the system, which brings me to the arrangement of the energy in the closed system. Remember, low entropy will equal what? It will equal energy being concentrated. High entropy will equal what? Energy being spread out. Now, this is so cute. I was like, time for the novices to leave the room. But I don't think I'm going to go into all that other stuff because it's a bit much. So let's go back to the top and start talking about just a recap, and then I'm going to go we'll tie this into the Big Bang and in the beginning with chaos. Oh, here it is. In the beginning, there was low entropy, right? Many spiritual schools of thought describe beginning similarly to the second law of thermodynamics. The Kabbalah talks about it, the Ein Sof, condensing self down, the Tzimtzum, basically the Kemet, the creation of Ra. So there's like, in the beginning, there's always, even though it's a creation story, there's always the element of chaos, or AKA destruction, disorder, and even though it's randomness and chaos, it's still, remember what I said about you can always validate the divine by being paradox. There's a paradox. We're talking about the organization of something, but there's a presence of chaos. That's what I see entropy helps me with, like tying it into the spiritual side. Like Entropy is the measurement already. When you say the measurement of disorder, even that's like an oxymoron. You're right. I'm measuring chaos. I'm measuring disorder. So entropy is really awesome because you think about, the beginning, darkness, the Big Bang, space, and you hear about these stories. Out of the darkness, out of the chaos came creation. And in that creation, right? Stay with me, because let me walk real slowly with this. In the creation, there is this force. Now it sounds like I'm going into gravity, right? There's this force that, which I'm not really, but there's more than one force. But the reason I said gravity, because I'm going to talk about time. Oops, gave it away. But anyway, in the creation, it's being pushed from moment to moment. I don't want to say forward, because I don't want you to start envisioning it as something that's linear. It's pushed to be greater and greater. It never shrinks down. Now, with that understood, it gets greater and greater, or what happens? It remains constant. Now, when you hear about it remaining constant, you would think of it as, oh, remaining constant means that it's just going to freeze and just be there frozen. However, we can explore it as remaining constant, meaning it just ends. Now, that might sound like a contradiction, right? But it's not. Because you would think we have been trained to conceptualize, not even to conceptualize, to understand the end being a decrease. But the end, that's why it's not really even an end. It's a change from what was before, and it will never be that again. Like dying, right? The end of life, so to speak. If you do subscribe to or understand beyond your actual living, each living being, like a fly flying around, you swat the fly and the fly is gone forever, you think, but really that's a constant. You stop the fly, right? You say, well, I stopped it because it's dead, but it's never going to go back to being a larva. It's not at that moment. It's never going to go back to being a little bitty, you know, maggot. It's ending, though. What am I talking about? You can look at the spiritual, you can look at what's going on, and you can apply it to entropy and the laws of thermodynamics. With the beginning and the creation, right? We're talking about now. We're gonna start talking about a little bit about black holes too, because it's something we can observe this and say, oh, that's kind of like what. All right, I get it. Like that's the chaos, that's the darkness. These enigmatic, these mysterious black holes that we find so dangerous and so intriguing. And Stephen Hawkins told us a little bit about it, but we need to know more and more. But what will we risk to find this out? Get it? So, oh, and also these laws about entropy on the outside are like when you're near the opening of a black hole, you there is information saying, okay, wait a minute, this is an exception. I said that I'm really rough on this because I'm better at understanding it when it comes to this kind of stuff, as far as when I say the black hole, than I'm better at understanding it than imparting it because I'm not an expert on it. So I'm going to go read something for you, but I'm giving you the gist of it. So let's go back to creation. So in creation, and this is easy for us right here. I backed off the black hole for a minute, but we'll get back to it. In the beginning, there's this chaos, there's this darkness, right? And that's why I always say, why do people think darkness is evil? It's just unadulterated power and purity of and it's essential. It's the essence of all. We talk about this stuff called primordial goo, black goo, the darkness in the womb, whatever. star people, we're made of what the stars are made of, things like that, right? So what we have in the beginning, we have the darkness. According to the entropy and the laws of thermodynamics, something has, let's say the Big Bang comes out of that, but it never goes back. Even though it never goes back, it can remain constant in the state that whatever it's, when it's moving so-called forward, or when it's increasing, when entropy is increasing, when the chaos is increasing, which is great because you say, wait a minute, chaos, well, creation says that God made this and that and it was all in order. That's relative, right? It's moving forward. The chaos never decreases, right? But it can remain constant. So I talked about that, how that could be the end of something. But even in that end, there's going to eventually be a movement again, or an increase, more increase, right? So our existence in the universe, when our universe was formed, or when our world was formed, there was, before that, this is my take, according to entropy and even the Big Bang, there was something before that happened, and then the darkness came out of, I'm saying it before the Big Bang came out of that, and then there was the constant. So whatever was before the so-called Big Bang, whatever was before the darkness in the beginning, all these spiritual writings, there was something before that we don't know what it was, but looking at the microcosm, looking at the laws of thermodynamics, looking at everything in physics and chemistry, even in biology, you can say, okay, something came from that. When a baby comes out of the birth canal, that's wild, and it looks like, is this okay? Anybody, if you don't know, you think this is so chaotic, but it really is in order. But what came before that, there was, something before that always. That's not a good example. What I'm saying is, something came before the darkness that is here, or was here, and then boom, Big Bang, and then just kept on and kept increasing the chaos, the so-called chaos. That is why when I say, I've taught this before, when I say, they say the chaos was in the beginning, I say that is the feminine, and we call it chaos, but is it really chaos? That's what we call it. Even in science, we say chaos. But randomness, chaos, disorder, it's still something essential, and it's still in essence, it's essential, and in essence, because it is essential, it's really a part of order. I love it. There's a paradox. So it's moving forward. We're existing, right? This so-called creation, and even you can relate this to evolution. And it just keeps moving forward. It'll never go back, but it can remain constant. Now, some might say, well, no, constant means that it stays in the same order and every. I'm purposefully conflating philosophy with in the metaphysical with the science of thermodynamics and the chemistry. Let me check the chat, y'all. There's probably only like 3 people in here, but okay, we have Ben Frank, peace, true living God, peace. Peace. Black holes are the best. Great. I'm glad you feel that way, because I want to close this for a minute. I'm going to read this article. But you get what I'm saying? Entropy is like, it's awesome to tie in thermodynamics with the philosophical, with the metaphysical, with the discussion of, where did we come from? What are we? How did we get here? And then it ties into the spiritual writings, like ancient art, this ancient spiritual writings. So let me share this. This is a news article. Nope, that's not it. I don't know why. I'm losing steam, my friends. I'm getting sleepy all of a sudden. Of course. What time is it? 10:30. Oh, man. But I'm going to finish this up. How where is it? I had it up here and I can't find it. It's here though. I have too many tabs open. Is this it? That's not it, but give me a moment. Here, I found it. Phew. Okay, this is UC Berkeley, berkeley.edu. Let me read this, a portion of this article, because it's pretty long and I know you guys don't want to hear all of it. I will right now share the link so you can read it on your own if you want. I'm going to copy it and put it in the chat. I'm going to read an excerpt from it, a portion of it, because I'm going to read a little bit about the black holes and how they link to entropy, how they're linked. Okay. So, where is it at? Universal energy and disorder. Remember we talked about entropy is what? It's the measure of disorder in a close space, right? Universal energy and disorder. The recent research might have implications beyond black holes and quantum gravity. In their March paper, Goon and Penko redid the calculation of the black hole entropy and extremality corrections. Rather than using the language of gravity and black hole surface geometry, they calculated the corrections purely in terms of universal thermodynamic quantities like energy and temperature. This allowed them to discover a thermodynamic relation between energy and entropy that applies generally in nature. We just talked about that though, a little bit. Quote, "It's a beautiful relation," unquote, said Santos. In the case of black holes, the duo's formula says that what Chung and Riemann and Liu already proved. They proved that quantum gravity shifts the extremal limit of black holes. Let me say that again. In the case of black holes, the duo's formula says what Chung, Riemann, and Liu already proved. They proved that quantum gravity shifts the extremal, okay? Quantum gravity shifts the extremal limit of black holes, allowing them to store more charge per mass, and it shifts their entropy by a proportional amount. Another way of describing the extra storage capacity coming from quantum gravity is that a black hole of fixed charge can have less mass. Mass is a form of energy. Yeah, right? We already talked about that, right? Mass is a form of energy. And so this drop in mass can be thought of more generally as a shift in energy, one that is inversely proportional to a shift in entropy. Okay. Whereas for a black hole, the equal and opposite shifts in energy and entropy come from unknown details of quantum gravity. An equivalent situation exists for any physical system near its extremal limit. A gas, for instance, becomes extremal when cooled to absolute zero. We talked about different forms of matter, right? Okay. Goon and Pankos's thermodynamics formula says that any changes to the microscopic physics of the gas, such as the type of atoms that comprise it, produce equal and opposite shifts in its energy and entropy. There's that paradox, right? Goon speculated that the relation between energy and entropy might be useful in studies of ultra cold gases and other cryogenic experiments, because sometimes one is easier to calculate than others. Yeah, it is easy to, of course, we're talking about thermodynamics, so it's obviously going to relate to matter and this different states of matter. Okay, whether the entropy energy relation ever proves useful in earthly domains of physics, researchers still have plenty more work to do to explore the newfound link in the context of black holes and what it means for the nature of gravity. Being able to answer, why is gravity weak? Chung said. The fact that question is even on the board, the fact that that's a question that one can legitimately answer outside the realm of philosophy, see how they just said that? And the fact that it's connected through this long path to entropy, which is like the tried and true, most fascinating thing about black holes. Seems crazy. So, entropy is really a way, and we're relating it. Okay, duh. I'm not even anywhere near being an astrophysicist or anything like that, obviously, or I wouldn't be stumbling over a lot of this. However, I think you get what I'm saying. Isn't it interesting? Yeah, you don't have to be you know, a astrophysicist or a quantum theorist or quantum physicist to really explore the stuff and study it. And it is interesting because you look at what's actually being researched in science, and the coconut drops on your head. Shout out to Pseudo Killigan's Island. Shout out to Cedric, the professor. The coconut drops on your head, and you're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. All the science is leading back to like these books that are talking about, in the beginning there was chaos, in the beginning there was darkness, in the beginning God reduced self from chaos into a ordered, condensed space. When you look at the Kabbalah, it actually says that God, the Ein Sof, condenses self down. What did we talk about with low entropy? Let me see if anybody's out there listening. I know there's only a few people. What about low entropy? Remember when we talk about condensing? Okay, entropy is this way. When let me just get the PowerPoint up for y'all. Can you guys hear me? The heck? It went mute for some reason. All right, somebody's been picking them. No, I'm just kidding. Let me see. Here it is. Low entropy. Am I sharing it? Am I sharing it? Let me see if I'm sharing it. Am I coming in clear? No, you're not sharing it. All right, let's see here. My black. Oh, my PowerPoint at me. All right, so low entropy equals what? Low entropy is when energy is concentrated. High entropy is when energy is spread out. It fits exactly almost to a T with the Kabbalah, not just the Kabbalah, but with all other ancient writings when we talk about creation in the beginning. When we talk about, cosmology, and when we talk about the cosmogony, when we talk about the creation and the existence and how things came together and stories like that, it's very similar. Low entropy would be energy being concentrated. In the Kabbalah, it says the Ein Sof condensed self down to a concentrated form. And then what happened? Then, just, getting to the point, it starts to fractal. It fractals. It literally says it breaks apart, and then all the pieces fly out everywhere. That's entropy. That's the low entropy. That's the darkness in the beginning, right? So the Ein Sof in the Kabbalah says condenses down. So that's the low entropy. That is Now remember, I'm saying condenses down, but let me not even say that. Let me not say condenses down. We'll call it low entropy when we have a starting point, right? Remember when I said the laws of thermodynamics is entropy increases or remains constant. So when you come into the closed state and you see the microstates, when you see a closed, a closed state, well, let me just hold on. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it right here. Yes, a closed system. When you see, which is basically the state. So when you see entropy, right? The beginning, right? When I said condensed down, right? That just means the puzzle piece is together. The puzzle pieces are together. But what happened before that? Whatever was before that was in less, it was in more order than it is after. What am I talking about? If you look at the puzzle together, you would say in the room, oh, the puzzle's together. This is the beginning. This is how it is. But if you're looking at the laws of thermodynamics and you're talking about the beginning before the Big Bang, whatever we know as to be the beginning, like that mass, that black hole, basically, let's imagine everything was one huge black hole, right? Okay, whatever the Big Bang that we talk about, whatever increase of disorder that, when it increased, as far as when we're talking about entropy, that state from the beginning, which they would say Big Bang, before that Big Bang, and let's just imagine it as like this big space of like a black hole, right? We can even say dark matter, because they really don't know what that is. So we have that there, right? To us, that might seem like the most ordered, like there's nothing before that, but there was. And whatever was before that was even more condensed than the darkness after that, right before the black hole. Am I making sense? I hope so. I mean, right before the Big Bang. So right before the Big Bang, there was this mass of darkness, just this whatever is in between all of them, all of the atoms. You understand? Like they say matter is so and so 99.999% space, dark matter, whatever you want to call it. Whatever that was, which it related to black holes in the beginning, whatever that was, we say, oh, nothing is more condensed and organized than that. I use the word organized because in order, because disorder would be the opposite of that, and would be entropy, the measure of that. So whatever was before that was even more in order, more, or I should say less chaotic, less random than that state right before the Big Bang. And then when you look at it as, when we could go back to the Kabbalah, when it says the most high, unfathomable God, Ein Sof, condensed self down, right? It's not exactly happening like that. They're trying to help us understand what really we can look at it as an extension of the unadulterated, which is the most high, unfathomable God. Whatever came out, we see it as the most unadulterated. We say, oh, this is the purest form it could be. But it's not the purest, because it has been removed from what is the purest, which would be that Ein Sof, that unfathomable God. You know how it says condense self down and create it. So you can picture it as this darkness, this space came from whatever source you want to say is the unfathomable God, the Ein Sof, came out of it, the darkness, that order. It was chaos, but it was more in order than the chaos immediately before the Big Bang. So there's a disconnection that also some people would really lead them away from understanding their universe, the connection to the universal mind of God. Right there, you well, I'm saying in my conceptualization, I'm saying there is that darkness that came after the condensing down. So in the Ein Sof, I mean in the Kabbalah, right? That darkness was removed from whatever came before it, but then something came before that and before that and before that. So there's kind of like this infinite, going back. It just continues back. So let me get back to what I'm saying. So, I just saw a spirit. That's crazy in the hallway. So you see, there's the unfathomable God. Yes, I'm saying it. That control, whatever was less chaotic, more in order, less random than this darkness that we understand, that we know. This, I'm doing air quotes, this source, this unfathomable power, the Ein Sof, released something, we'll say part of self, and it became not as organized, or not as in order, I should say. Don't use the word organized. And it became more chaotic. And from that darkness, which that's why I'm relating it to a black hole, that that dark matter, whatever you want to call it, right? From that comes this, what we call Big Bang. But even in the Kabbalah, they talk about different, like a shattering. So that would be the Big Bang for us. That's the disorder. Because remember, the more microstates, the more energy equals more entropy, because entropy is always increasing. And as we go forward, we keep on going and going. But this is the good part. This is even more interesting. I'm talking about this force, or this Ein Sof, that was before our darkness, right? But there's going to be a time. You can't see what? Oh, I hope you can hear me. Let me say this. There's going to be a moment, one day. This is science. This isn't just me saying this. This isn't about, the apocalypse and Revelation. And this isn't, this is amazing, okay? There's going to be a point in the existence of all of the world and in all the universe when we hit the constant, and we're no longer increasing chaos. We're no longer increasing. When I say no longer, for a moment, no longer, not infinitely, not forever and ever, amen. There's going to be a moment again when there's this quiet, so to speak, where there's this quiet chaos. We will reach a moment of constance in all our chaos as we move forward. And when I say all our chaos, you hear about the earth is going to be ending in about this many 100,000 years or whatever. So that is an estimate, but it still goes back to something philosophical, something theological, something about God. You know what I'm saying? Something about spirituality, metaphysical, right? Philosophical, metaphysical. There's going to be a point, and this is, I said, this is the exciting part. Remember, we talked about this God that came before our darkness, which from our darkness came the Big Bang. From our darkness came the creation, right? There was something before that. We're going to be that. And I don't mean we like exactly me and you, but I do mean that, because we're going to be in a different energetic form. Because the first law of thermodynamics says that energy doesn't die. It never goes away. It just takes on a different form. So we will be us. And then when we get to that place or to that state where we are constant, in a constant state, to that moment, those that, what did you see in the hallway? Just a spirit, like a little shadow person, which is pretty, I see sometimes I see things like that. But it's like when I talk about certain things like this, or no, I'm not hallucinating, and no, I'm not on drugs, and no, I'm not drinking. So just saying, but that's okay because it's like the spirit realm, you know, saying, yes, good, you're doing great. Um, because the way it moved, the way the energy of it, it wasn't just like standing there staring at me like, what the hell are you talking about? Stop talking about that. It didn't do that. It just like flashed. But what was I going to say? Oh, so the amazing part is we're going to be thought of as like, oh, that was the God. That's the unfathomable. We're going to be in our, when we become constant and we stop increasing for that moment. I know, right? When we, but listen, check this out. When we find Phoenix and everybody, when we stop increasing and we become constant in this existence, all right, it's going to be like a silent time, you know what I mean? And then, boom, it's going to start right back up again. The increase. The increase is going to start right back up again. So, whatever comes after us will be like, definitely, not like, it will be we'll be the gods of it. You know what I mean? We will be like the gods of it. And it makes sense, right? We can align, we just aligned it with entropy, right? We just aligned it with, obviously, the second law of thermodynamics. We're using it in science. We aligned it with the Big Bang theory. We're aligning it with after we aligned it with the science, right? Now we're going to, we can go in and align it with the metaphysical. How do we do that? Well, we know they say, don't you know ye are gods, and you're going to judge, and those that came before you, and honor the ancestors, and oh, the spirit realm and the council of elders. It always talks about the old, right? And the ones that are before us. Boom. That's it. And then every, not just the Bible, everything you read is like, and then they're going to be in the spirit realm, and you're going to get everything you need, and you're going to be in peace, and you're going to be in nirvana. That's what's going to happen. We are going to be at our ultimate peak plateau state. And but the amazing thing is we become what we knew before, what we didn't know before us. There's the paradox. We become what never was to us. Because if you can't fathom something, it isn't it. If you don't fathom it, you can't conceptualize it. And if you can't conceptualize it, it never was. So how are you becoming what never was? Because that's the validation of the proof that's the paradox. So boom, it's true. You get what I'm saying? So this God that we don't, this enigmatic, unfathomable, mysterious, unseen. Oh God, I don't know. That was whatever it was before us, and now it is our God, and it's. And then when we level up, talking about science, we keep going forward, and then we become constant. Remember, some people would say, well, constant never changes, we're not going to explode. It's not, we're not talking about what actually, the like, you have to really be able to put it in perspective of, it's a measurement of chaos, and its entropy can be defined and described through the amount of randomness and disorder present in a closed system. Microstates within the system increase. We're the microstates. Can I get a boom? Right? Drop, bomb drop, no pun intended. We're the microstates within the system. But as we increase as microstates, what do we become? We become the entire system. And once we become the entire system, that's when we can be called, I'm doing air quotes, constant. And as a constant, we stop, boom, then there comes time when we pick back up in our increase of disorder. So the law of thermodynamics uh, is true in that. All right, how long I've been doing this? An hour? Over an hour? You get what I'm saying, y'all? You're like, I don't know what she's talking about. That's okay. So now I'm just going to share. I might as well. I'm going to go to this presentation that I did. I was going to show you the God is Light one, but let me just go to this presentation I did on the Killer Priest Popcraft and play some of it. So, it's a little different than what I taught today, but I think it's basically the same. So let's see. Entropy. Oh, because I went into time travel. I'll do that next time because I'm tired and I went into time travel. So let me get this. All right, let me get this. I was looking cray. I was tired that day too. You're always tired. Hold on, let me see what I'm saying. No, no, no. Okay. So I talked about it related to time. Oh my God. All right. So let's listen to a little of this, if not all of it, and then I can go ahead and close out. So here I am. Here I am. Here I go. All right, let's hear it. Sad. So, I mean, it's still edifying and we need to bring awareness to it. But I want to start out with just the science in the Bible. This is going to be really quick because I had been doing research. Remember, I was talking to you about
You're funny.
the time and
I mean,
everything
just watch it if you'd
present,
like.
and there is no past, there is no future. Well, obviously there's so many conversations that I didn't even think about going on as far as science, I mean philosophy and science. We've got the theory of relativity, block universe. uh, um, I was calling it time stacking, but basically obviously I'm not the only one that has embraced that concept.
Time stacking?
No, well, I called it time stacking, but
well, the Crips call it stacking. It's a like. Go ahead, just light it up. Go ahead. No, I like time stacking because you're making something that's crazy into something that's beautiful.
Right. So, like, I was doing some research on it, and I thought I might relate it to the Bible, just starting little baby steps and talking about entropy. And basically, I can just get my PowerPoint, share it. The entropy relates to the flow of time, because I had, like I said, Priest, when I was talking to you about it, remember I was like, it's not, time isn't linear really. It's not like a timeline, even though we hear about it. It's not really happening in a progression, but there is a flow of time. There is a flow of time, and entropy relates to that flow, and it also relates to our consciousness. So what I was saying when I said there isn't a flow of time, there's not a timeline, it's not linear, but there's a flow of time. What I meant is there is an increase, like it just like it says when with the measure, it increases. So 100% entropy is related to time. It's related to Einstein's theory of relativity. 100% it relates to the discussion about string theory. It's just that I'm a little tired, but so I just want to play some of this and give you some information on the time part. So let's keep listening.
Please share my PowerPoint, if I could. Let me see, share screen.
Share my screen.
So I'm not sharing the system audio. Yes, okay. All right, so this is just something I threw together really quickly. It's not fancy, but it just helps everyone to follow along. So in the beginning, there was low entropy. So I wanted to relate this to the Bible. And I know you can appreciate this, priest. That's why I also wanted to use the Bible to show that there's science involved with the scriptures. And also not just the scriptures, other ancient spirituality, ancient spiritualism, they relate to this. So in the beginning, there was low entropy. And what is entropy? Entropy is the measurement of disorder and the direct measure of each energy configuration's probability. So basically, entropy is the how much disorder is going on. So the actual presence, and then you figure out what the presence of disorder. And in a lot of spiritual stories, you hear about the beginning and the chaos. So entropy, second law of thermodynamics, and by the way, that it is about thermodynamics. It's all about thermodynamics. Which is basically energy, which is basically light. So entropy always, this is one of the rules, the second law of thermodynamics, that entropy always and can only increase. So that means that you can never, let me scratch that. According to the law of thermodynamics, entropy cannot be reversed. So when you break an egg and you scramble it, you can't unscramble the egg. You understand? Like you can't, when you break something, if something falls off the table.
I want to make sure I'm not muted. Now I'm relating this to the actual science more than going into, and even there is science discussions of time travel, but I'm talking about the actual conventional information that we know today, right? That we're sure of. So I just want to make that clear when I say you can never. I want to be very careful with that kind of language. But yeah, so just want to clear that up in case somebody later on, when I'm talking about something differently in a different light, they'll say, "But you said." So I always have to cover my donkey. Hold on. So I'm just going to start playing this some more.
Table of glass, you can't make the glass go back up onto the table and not be broken. So that's the idea. That's the idea of entropy. Entropy is always an increase of chaos, an increase of disorder, so to speak. Do you have any questions so far?
No, I got you. I'm following through.
Okay. What?
I'm following through. I got you. That's interesting.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we're listening.
Great. So if you look at the beginning, when we hear about, I want to use the Bible, but we can use other, like I said, schools of thought, other spiritualism. But if you look at the Bible, it says, in the beginning there was, let me see, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form, right there, and void, and darkness was up on the face of the deep. So that's the entropy, okay? That's the portion of entropy, because the other portion would be the energy, which is the light of God. So the whole concept there is you have the disorder and you have the energy, which is the light. And what's happening out of the chaos, out of the disorder, there is an increase, or how do you say, a creation of our realm and our existence, and inevitably our consciousness, and inevitably the flow of time. So it's not that we have to have 24-hour clocks and timelines and calendars. We don't have to even have that. But what we do have is entropy, and entropy, as you saw, is the measure of the disorder. Okay, the energy. So, for instance, when by the way, there's low entropy. I didn't show you that. Chaos, aka disorder, was in the beginning. So the spread of energy, right? That's what entropy basically is. You can have molecules in different different matter. So let's say water, which is okay. There's 3 states, obviously, of water, and you have the low entropy, which would be, it starts off as, let's say, frozen. I'm giving you an example. I know water doesn't start off at frozen, but I'm trying to give you a concept of how it works. When the energy is concentrated, it's low entropy. Then when the energy starts to spread out, it's high energy, and it's more so when the entropy is spreading out, it's high energy. When the entropy is low, it's concentrated. So if you look at the beginning was concentrated. It was the darkness. It was condensed. And then when the light came in, it started to spread, and there was an expanse of everything, including this realm and consciousness. If that makes sense. Am I making sense so far?
Yeah, I got you. I'm following along.
Do you have any questions?
Nah, go. You're going
I'm
in.
almost done.
You're going in. You're going in. It's kind of deep. Go ahead. Ready.
So when you look at it that way and you relate it to time, flow, and consciousness, you can see that the Bible, and not just the Bible, other holy writings are very, even though they were ancient, they correspond, or they correlate to what is being said today in quantum physics, and it's really exciting. So I just put in here, energy is light, and light is our conceptualization of God in this realm. So again, we have the entropy, and when the energy is concentrated, it's low, but when it starts to spread out, it's high energy. So I mean, it's the progression. So basically, there is no going back with entropy. If you look at science and it says the Big Bang, you can relate entropy to the Big Bang even. Let me go back to this before I get to that. Yeah, you can relate the Big Bang to entropy. So in the beginning, there was entropy. There was an energy, but it was low. And then something happened where it started to increase, and it started to expand. Excuse me, and then it increased. And what we're doing is, because you've said, I've talked to you before about this priest and other people, people say, well, was there something before the beginning in these stories? So there must have been something before that was entropy increasing. So even though we see it at our point as a low entropy, as low, energy or thermodynamics, it's low and it's condensed. In our story, it starts to expand, right? We start seeing the creation of this, and then the day, and then we hear all that. Just like I'm going to get to these other holy stories and other writings, like in the Kabbalah, the Tzimtzum, like many spiritual schools of thought describe the beginning similarly to the second law of thermodynamics, which is entropy always increases. It increases. So let me just read a portion of it's from this website, and it just describes Kabbalah. And yes, Kabbalah, a lot of people may not subscribe to it, but I'm giving you an idea that religion or spiritualism relates to science very close.
Well, Kabbalah is just like it's mysticism on the side of the Hebrew religion.
Right.
So it's a book, and there's one for Muslims, Sufi, I think, and there's a book where all the schools have certain mystic orders that goes a little deeper than just the surface into the esoteric realm. That's for the listeners out there. Am I on point with you?
You got it. I like
Okay.
it. Oh, thank you for adding that.
I feel
Yeah.
I felt good right there.
Okay.
Hey, come on, let's go. You good?
Okay. So, Chris, you know this stuff. You're funny.
No, no, I know nothing. I'm just an empty vessel. But I like the way you explain it, where we going at, because somebody asked a good question. They said, "Are you saying that we can't time travel, or is there?" You just go there, right? Are you saying that we can't time travel, or there's a possibility of time traveling?
Well, that's a good question. According to the theory of relativity and Einstein, with the so-called there's 4 dimensions, that would say that leans toward no time travel. But for me, in my research, when I say time stacking, there's definitely ways to well, even Michio Kaku talks about wormholes, and not just Michio Kaku, but a lot of quantum theorists, they talk about wormholes, which you can definitely travel possibly to multi-universes. So yes, we can time travel. So I was just saying, like, as far as the construct of time and what we've been programmed to believe that it's infinite, when time is exactly opposite of infinite. It's finite, it's actually malleable, you can manipulate time. So
Don't mind me. I just gave you a bomb. You going in?
oh, thank you. Okay, so yes, so we can time travel, but if you look at it depends on what you look at. Like if you look at Einstein, he's way behind, and he was wrong about a lot of stuff. He was wrong, especially wrong about quantum entanglement, which is also linked to entropy. When you look at entropy, the reason I picked this particular, I mean, I could have covered a lot of stuff, but entropy is so interesting because yeah, it is that movement that we talk about. You know how we say we're always leveling up or we're always growing. It's in everything, even when you are born, that's a type of entropy. You're growing. So the consciousness expanse is exponential. I mean, now that is infinite. But when people were talking about time travel, when you have all these multiverses, we have this thing called the Akashic record. I'm just saying this so people can relate to what I'm saying. But think of all the multiverses that we as individuals exist in. Now, the question, yeah, jump in, of course.
I'm thinking of amnesia. Like,
yeah. Go ahead.
Take us there, because I'm getting an amnesia type of thing, because when you can't remember, and then you start going through when there's no more belt or anything holding you. Say it comes from a freak accident, or maybe you just wake up with amnesia one day. I don't know, but you do start figuring out, and there's cases of them traveling back and forth and don't remember things and can remember certain things that no one even knows what they're talking about. But that person sees it, and it's almost like they're traveling through their mind, but they condense it into amnesia. Is it? Oh wow.
Right, and that's a good point. And don't forget deja vu. These are all points of your consciousness, and you always want to know. You always have to keep in mind, even if you don't fully subscribe, if you're a so-called unconventional thinker who doesn't subscribe fully to conventional science, because quantum theory is conventional science now, you still have to say, well, what is this right now, what we're doing? What is this progression that I feel? It's not exactly that you're moving forward in a timeline. You're not moving forward in a timeline, and you're not. So that's where I do subscribe to some of Einstein's thought, but he's off. I mean, I know everybody loves Einstein, and I respect Einstein,
Now,
but
talk that talk. Talk your talk.
I mean,
Man.
Einstein was a genius, but there were a lot of, why do we put so much stock in it? Well, anyway, a lot of what he put out
Say
there.
it. Don't be scared. Let him go. Let him know. You broke down that before. No, that's serious. A lot of they're coming up with a lot of these forefathers and a lot of these people, like, they were wrong a couple of times, and then the next generation have to come and correct them. And that's what life is about, evolving. And it's about, they didn't have it all correct at the right time. They was approximately, some of them just guessing. Go ahead, it's your show. Go ahead.
No, it's not my show. It's actually your show.
What I'm saying is you taking a rocket. What I'm just saying, it's like some of them will don't have it all correct. They didn't finish some of their books. They just wrote down anything because it was a new life, a new world, new world order was starting back there, and people started to come out now asking questions. And a lot of people, they had gigantic telescopes, but they wouldn't talk about the natives or the aboriginals that was there that were getting that connection without even the big gigantic telescopes. They just had stories, but they will all relate to them. But they wasn't interested in getting money, making books. Their school of thought was in their circle, in their small pockets of circles where they would come to the shaman, the person, the seer, the fate speaker, or what you would say, the person that was in tune with his surrounding. Sort of like the tiger is in tune with his surrounding. Striped up, but you can't spot him. I had to say that.
Right. Wow. I like the way you said that. You threw your tiger in there. You're a master at that. I like it. At every point, every moment, I must let the people know about the tiger. Okay, so thank you for that input, because this is an important topic, and I do like to relate it to the ancient writings, especially to the Bible. People need to know that the Bible isn't some clown book. It has been used for the Inquisition. It has been used to conquer people. It has been used to destroy a whole generation after generations, hundreds of years of my people. It has been used in that way, but that doesn't mean that doesn't say that the writings shouldn't be examined to get the truth of it. And no, I'm not proselytizing. I'm just saying, don't abandon any ancient writing. You would be regretful to do so if you're on your journey to find out all that you can.
Well, the original man who created the Holy Quran of the Bible, you know what I'm saying, is the original man. So the original man, those are lessons that came from older lessons. So they put it, Bible just means book. You know what I mean? You can do the research yourself. Holy is true, but you can go into however you see it. And it's how you draw it up. Because it goes into, and just, I don't want to go too much, but it goes into how you see it, how you see it today, how you feel it today, how you draw that up. Because there's all type of power. So how's that gonna manipulate somebody if your mind is all
be reversed? So when people say, well, I see the earth as a dome shape and flat, that is truly the shape of the earth for them. Like if you take a bubble and you look at this information and you think about the manifestation of your, like, what your reality is linked so deeply to your own thought, your own consciousness, to where you can't even see where it begins and where it starts, right? Get it, Solomon? Like, you don't know which one is reality. Where is my consciousness, and how is it disconnected? If you really, the more you start leveling up in your consciousness and in your wisdom, you understand there really is, even if it's just a microscopic line, there's a fine line between the universal mind of God and my own individual consciousness. And what I'm getting at is, I'm seeing that the earth isn't some ball of hard material that's shaped a certain way. It is, how do you say it? Like if you take a bubble, a soap bubble, and you blow air into that soap bubble and it's in a narrow space, that soap bubble is going to have two flat sides and a concave, or not concave, a rounded out front and back. So it'll be like this, your soap bubble, right? Because that's your mind. Your mind is there. If your mind is full and rounded, then you're going to, your consciousness and the earth itself is going to be formed in that way for you energetically, and the energy becomes matter. So we're talking about entropy still. Remember, the thermodynamics, the movement creates something that cannot be reversed. So when people say, well, I see the earth as a dome shape and flat, that is truly the shape of the earth for them, because that is where their consciousness is at. So I wanted to put that thought out there. And I don't even know, I haven't really engaged in this flat earth debate and conversation too much.
Choose
but
your
I will,
words lightly on
no,
this show.
wisely. No, and I'm ready for it, because this is infallible. You cannot, none of us can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt what the shape of the earth is. So what do we have to do? We have to start looking at philosophical things more than what these people are talking about. And the measurements, and I was up in the sky, I shot a rocket, and I saw the rain coming down. Stop all that, because it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to prove to people beyond a shadow of doubt what the shape of the earth is from all of these experiments and these things, either way, on either side. But what we can do is approach it. You can still use science. You can still use science, but you have to approach it from a very philosophical point, which I challenge someone to do that with me. Approach it from a philosophical point of view, and then you would have to admit that you're lopsided in your whole thinking, in your consciousness. If you say the earth is just flat, a dome and it's flat on the bottom, that tells me about your consciousness. That tells me about where you are. But if you know it is rounded and it's not asymmetrical, it's a full sphere, then I can say, okay, you are going to, and I'm not talking about the ones who are programmed and they never do the research. I'm talking about the darkest minds of the light, who understand that there is not, we talk about the stratosphere, and we talk about all these different concepts of gravity and how are we being held to the earth. Those are things that are like kind of like grammar school. No offense. Like those examples saying, how's the earth spinning so fast and we're not flying off? Like that's something that can be proven easily with science. But the science, I agree with the flat earthers. How can the science be 100% infallible, right? So the only thing that I want to focus on, or mostly focus on, is the philosophical side of the shape of the earth. So going back to entropy, how do I relate that to the shape of the earth? We're talking about the creation. I was going to read something from the Lurian Kabbalah. There's different Kabbalahs. This is, you want to explain that?
Shout out to Broken Home Podcast. He told me he was coming through, man. Good looking. I see you up in there. It's a great time right now. Broken Home Podcast is in the building. See you. All right.
Broken Home or Broken Gnome?
Broken Home Podcast.
Oh, okay. I love gnomes. I was like, Broken Gnome.
Hey, I am the gnome.
So can you see this article that I have here about the Kabbalah, or no? You can't see it.
Yeah, let's do it.
The article? No,
you can only see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes. You see the PowerPoint, yep.
Okay, so let me just read this from, it's from HebrewForChristian.com. It just talks about the Kabbalah. How did God create the word? Now, this is the world. This is according to the Lurian Kabbalah, which is European, just letting you know. It's a more modern Kabbalah. It's not the ancient Kabbalah. However, it is a Kabbalistic concept. And what I'm doing is, I'm not saying I subscribe to it. I'm showing that there is a spiritual thought linked to Torah that is almost, dare I say, aligned with science. So the Kabbalah of creation, how did God create the world? So the Tzimtzum, Tzim, let me see if I have that up on my, yeah, there it is. Okay, the Tzimtzum of the Kabbalah is an explanation of God creating something out of nothing. Now the nothingness is that darkness and that disorder, okay? In the beginning, there was only God and nothing else. God, or Ein Sof, was an all-encompassing divine presence slash light called Or Ein Sof, the light of infinity. Now, stop right there. What we're talking about is, remember, we're talking about thermal.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I kind of touched on that, but I want to say this. Notice how it's God is referred to light, but we talk about the darkness that came from the light. When I say the darkness in the beginning, remember I was talking about that concept of it was in more order. If we're going to go with the laws of thermodynamics, the second law of thermodynamics, and discuss entropy and relate it to that, we would have to say whatever was before the darkness, which I'm discussing here, and what I'm reading. Actually, I'm reading from excerpts, just some information explaining the Kabbalah, the Lurian Kabbalah. So it's the light. From that came the darkness. And what you could look at is say, oh, okay, this is a type of chaos. Get it? The light was more ordered than the dark. But also, I keep pointing out, there's another paradox. The darkness comes from the light, like black hole sun, or you get what I'm saying? The darkness, the light together, the darkness comes out of the light. So just want to point that out, because I was discussing how whatever came before this darkness of ours had to be something that was less, if we measured it, there'd be less chaos, less randomness, less disorder, more of a concentrated state, and less entropy. So just want to say that. Let's listen more.
Dynamics, we're talking about energy. Energy equals light, and we have that beginning, right? We have that disorder. So all of that together is actually the entropy. We have God as light, which is electromagnetic resonance a lot of times in this realm. And we also have God as energy and the measurement of the disorder, how much
electromagnetic radiance. Okay, just want to make sure I clarify that. AKA light. Okay, so
energy,
protons,
that is disordered. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So since nothing but God existed before creation, this is their Kabbalistic thought. Now from what I understand, there was something before. Okay, but anyway, I digress.
And I mentioned that, remember? In the Kabbalah, it's taught there was nothing before. But from my observation, from studying, there was always something before. Even if you read, it says there is no beginning for, I'm doing the air quotes, God. There is no beginning. So there was always something before, and then something before that, and something before that. But it's all tied together. We're going to, now I'm talking about string theory. It transcends realms, it transcends dimensions. And even that was the macrocosm I'm talking about when I discussed the string theory. Okay, but that was a macrocosm, I said. Now the microcosm would be, in this life, you have a connection with every existing thing because everything is a being in this particular realm, aka world, aka dimension, and even to the fourth, to 1, 2, 3, and for sure 4. You're connected. So you're connected. And why do I say that? You're all one universal mind of what we know as whatever was in the beginning, which is God. But we know that we're all one mind, but we cannot fathom that. Why? Because it's infinite. It's beyond us. We understand it, and the way we understand it is we know that it can't be fully understood. I keep throwing out the paradoxes. It's just because it's so true. It's just like validation. When you can state something and it's oxymoronic, when you can state something and it's paradoxical, that's when you know, yes, this is definitely real. So let me play some more.
God needed to make a space or to provide room for that which was not God. So an otherness. Now, if you look at the beginning, we could talk about Big Bang. We don't even have to talk about the Bible. Big Bang Theory. It's an explosion out of chaos that created our universe, right? Well, this is the Big Bang. This is something like the Big Bang, making something out of nothing, and it becomes, so it's God condensing self. Let me finish reading. God therefore emptied himself. God isn't a him, but okay, we're reading their thought, right?
Mhm.
God emptied himself by contracting his infinite light. Remember entropy, when it's low entropy in the beginning, it can never, at the beginning it's low, so that's concentrated energy. That's entropy. Concentrated energy, contracted. And here it says, God therefore emptied himself by contracting his infinite light. That is the energy. Concentrated energy is the low entropy. And then to create a conceptual space, see, it's always about conceptual. We need to conceptualize God. God is unfathomable. So this is what's going on in this story, in this ancient Kabbalistic story, in the Kabbalah, I should say. God actually condensed energy that's actually low entropy and created our space and our concept of our existence. So created the conceptual space for the creation of the universe, our existence. In a great cosmic flash, God then condensed, again, we have the low entropy, which is the concentrated energy condensed into a point of infinite density and infinite energy called Tzimtzum, the contraction. And then it exploded out. Look at this, family. This is how exciting this is. Okay, we talked about low entropy, which is condensed energy that's not spread out, right? Exploded out. When it's high entropy, when it starts to progress in our existence, the energy spreads out. That's exploded out. That's the same as the science. So it exploded out in all directions. Okay, that's called the Big Bang. In a sense, this self-imposed contraction of God, what God did, of the infinite light, is a picture of God sacrificing himself for the sake of creation. So that I just wanted to read that. So here we have, I said, many spiritual schools of thought describe the beginning similarly to the second law of thermodynamics, which is entropy always goes from low to high. It always increases. It never, according to this law, doesn't decrease. So the Kabbalah, in Kemet, the Heliopolis story, the creation of Ra, in Kemet, Ra comes out of the darkness, the dark waters of noon. And then we have the Apep, which is the snake. They were one. Okay, we're talking about condensed. What happened? Ra separates. See, now we're doing spreading out. Ra separates from Apep, but Apep in the chaos tries to come back with Ra. It doesn't work because why? The second law of thermodynamics says that Entropy cannot go back, right? So then Ra starts to what? Expand. He has his two children come out of him, and then more comes out of him. So then in the Greek mythos story, same thing. Chaos, Gaia, everything comes out of that, okay? Then I just put another example, the Mesopotamian story, the destruction of she was the chaos, and then things came out of her, and that's the creation of our earth. There's so many different stories I could put on there. I didn't really put anything about the Hindu stories, but all the stories have a type of chaos or a oneness that is expanding out to a full creation. So this is the last of this. Entropy relates to the flow of time and the expansion of consciousness. So why do I say that? As I said, we're experiencing something. So we could say it's our existence, or we could say, okay, this is entropy that we're experiencing. We're not experiencing the progression of time. So I do fully believe in time travel, that it's possible. But what we're experiencing is all in one moment, but it is still entropy. It is still the spreading out of energy, and that is our existence. And it is linked to our consciousness, because in the spreading out of the energy, like I said before, we have one universal mind of God that we came out of, the unfathomable God, but then we have our individual consciousnesses. But that's a different thing. I think that's all. So yeah, I think that's pretty.
Okay.
That was long, right?
No, that was good. That was good. I enjoyed it.
All right, that is enough of that. All right, so thanks for listening. Just thought I might add that on. So we'll talk more about it, hopefully. Entropy, if not, do your research on it. It's really good. It's really interesting. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? I can't really think about what else I want to tell you. Just that. Entropy. Let me just recap. Give you a little bit just of a recap on my PowerPoint. I didn't do the light. I didn't do Goddess light. I'll do that later. All right, so what we've got here, just going to go to the top of this. And yeah, in the beginning, there was low entropy. But even though there was low entropy, remember, that is what we logically perceive. Low entropy coming into it is the beginning, right? It would be the lowest of what the state is now. Doesn't mean that it was the lowest of all time. For me, it is the constant, and then it picks up again. It always increases. I was going to say forward, but I don't like using that word when I'm talking about stuff like this. It always increases, chaos, aka disorder, was in the beginning. The spread of energy, when there's low entropy, energy is concentrated. High entropy, get that away, energy is spread out. All right, peace to the darkest, most beautiful, amazing, decoding minds of the light. And yes, it is a physics stream. Peace to everybody. Enjoy your evening. Happy Heart and Love Day. And sleep well, or do whatever you're doing, do it well. As long as you're not harming anyone or being destructive. And that's the same thing. Peace.